Wait. Wow, 3, 2, 1. Now we're live.
Yay.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, Iris.
Welcome.
How are you?
Hi. Great. I've got two Kellys I'm talking to on a
Yeah.
Monday afternoon, so I'm excited.
Perfect. Well, we're so happy to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join the party. I feel like I'm belonging now. So
You are, and I love that you think that it's a party. That's wonderful. We may change the title.
I'm actually really excited because I met you a long time ago at this point. It doesn't feel like that long ago when you actually look at the years. And I've always wanted to get to know more. Like, I've always been like, oh, I want to ask more questions. And we just kind of see each other in passing. And I'm like, ooh, I get to hear Iris' story today.
I know, it's weird. I feel like that a lot in Rochester because we're such a small. We're not such a small town, but we're kind of smaller, right? And we kind of all know each other and we all follow each other and we like what we're doing. I love what you're doing. You're posting things, but we don't see each other. But I think it's a really interesting way in which so many people connect now is we might be following each other and their lives and it's very resonant. And you post things about your kids. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get that. So it's kind of nice to actually have a one-on-one or two-on-one connection now.
Absolutely.
We're bombarding you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell us.
I just met you for the first time last week at a Women Empowering Women conference, apropos. So I'm very excited to learn more about you. So
Yeah.
I am going to be completely off the cuff today because I know nothing and I'm excited.
Oh, it's great.
So tell us who you are and what you do for the world.
For the world.
For the world.
Hello, world. So what I do now versus how people define me are different, right? So we have some of those things. I think I would define where I am today as being a mom, as being a leadership and performance coach, as being a wife and being a friend, being part of the community. So those are all the descriptions I would put on myself. But how people know me is that they call me Iris the Olympian, because that's how people know me in Rochester, because I made the Olympic team in 2000. My sister owns the fencing club today, Rochester Fencing Club. And she's a two-time Olympian. And how else people would describe me, I think that's a lot of it. So people often come to me with that sort of title, oh, you're an Olympian. And so I'm Iris the Olympian.
Well, I can guess why because I didn't know that, and that's incredible. Holy crap!
Okay. I can count on one hand how many Olympians I know, and it's I've met you and your sister because I've met your sister, so I'm going to technically count you both.
Oh my god! Well, congratulations! That's incredible.
Yes. Thanks. That was a long time ago. So I was 19 years old when I made the Olympic team, and then I was an alternate to the 2004 Olympic Games. And we started here in Rochester. I started at 6 years old at the Rochester Fencing Center, and we own the fencing club now, that same fencing club that we started at. Or Felicia owns it now. You
were 6. How was that something your family wanted you to get involved in, or did you just wake up one day and like, I want to learn how to fence at 6?
Wouldn't that be great if we all just kind of woke up and decided, like, this is what I'm going to be?
I haven't done that yet. I haven't had that wake-up moment yet, so I'm still there.
So the 6-year-old thing wasn't a wake-up call to that, but my sister is about 5 years older than me, and she started first before me. So by the time I started at 6 years old, what is she, 11 or 12, she was already doing very well in the sport, and my mother didn't want to just go. We were going from Henrietta to the city. It was in downtown in Rochester, and she was like, I am not taking 2 kids in 2 different places. And so I just started fencing. Yeah. Well, it was interesting. So the whole story that I do tell about my experience is that my parents are immigrants to this country. My father's German, my mother's Chinese. And I just had this crazy conversation with my mother last week about her experience and her coming to the United States, because that was the impetus for all of us being here. For her, it was about freedom and coming to the United States and having kids here because they wouldn't be pushed in certain directions in China at the time. Like you're pushed in certain directions, you take tests, and you have to decide very soon who you are and where you want to be in this sort of mix. And she wanted for us to have more choice. And so it was very important for us because she said, people in the United States, they have to do a sport to go to college, because my father worked for Kodak, was an electrician. She stayed at home. She actually was a trained nurse, but stayed at home. And we wouldn't have been able to afford college. So she said, in the United States, if you do a sport, you have to do it very well in order to get a scholarship to a good school. So both my sister and I received scholarships to Stanford. So we did that sort of dream for her. So it wasn't so much a choice, although I think if we just complained about it, she would say, hey, if we made a huge mess of the whole thing and we complained about it, but my sister was doing well. The coach that built the program, he actually became a Hall of Fame coach. It was just all the stars aligned, and I happened to like it too. And I think part of it was that people around me were really successful. So it wasn't so much I was like, oh, I love this sport, is so amazing. I think that was really my sister who made the choice for that sport, because it was the one thing that she felt very connected to. But I think I just tagged along, and I was like, she's doing it and I want to do what she's doing, and I kind of like it, and it's great. And people are being very successful. So it was kind of a mix of the two. So it's a long-winded answer to that.
It's a great answer to that. So that was 2000. Sorry, I'm keeping notes for myself because that's how I learn. So 2000.
I love that you're taking notes.
That your sister owns the fencing club now.
Yeah, so good that you picked up on that. She and I, after I retired from from fencing in 2008, I was like, I don't know what to do with my life, and I was trying to think. Like, I took the LSAT twice, and I don't think I would ever have been a good lawyer. I actually went to a local law firm and said, oh, hey, can you tell me what it's like to be a lawyer? And the guy's like, you need to run as fast as you can in another direction. Do not become a lawyer. And I was like, oh. I just took the LSAT twice, and I visited some schools, so I took it very seriously. I was like, this guy really hates this. I'm like, okay, I didn't end up interviewing anyone else. So I was like, Felicia, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm retired. So I started coaching, and I called her. She was actually working in Dubai at the time for a consulting company. And I said, we have to buy the fencing club. How about that? And she said, okay. So part of it was because I needed some container for what am I going to do with this? And I'm not ready to move on necessarily from fencing and that fencing identity. But I have to do something. So I started owning the fencing club with my sister, and we did that, and we bought it in 2009. And then in 2019, I left the fencing club right before the pandemic. I think 2019. I didn't leave, but we came to a place where it was better to have one owner. We had grown a lot. We had done very well. We really wanted the fencing club because it was the one space. And so I think this is really important, because this is how we built our community there, is we wanted one space. We felt that the fencing club was our space. We felt that the fencing club was the one place that we fit in. Being immigrant kids, being half Asian kids, where mixed kids are kind of the norm, more normal now. But when we were mixed kids in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't a thing. And also being Chinese was very odd. Like, everyone would, I always thought I was white, but everyone would point me out as Chinese. It's like a weird thing being a biracial person. So you kind of play all these parts. And so we never really felt a sense of belonging. So the fencing club, you put the mask on and you do really well in a sport. You have a super sense of belonging. And we were also super nerdy kids. So, and nerdy was not cool in the 80s and 90s. Right. And we were very, very, very nerdy. So Chinese school on Saturdays, my mom made us do extra math. Like, we were super nerdy. So we found at the fencing club a bunch of nerds that were like us, and you put the mask on and you could fence. And for my sister, putting the fencing mask on was very liberating for her, because she could just be whomever she wanted to be, right? So the mask goes on and you could be whomever you want to be, and there's no definition, it doesn't matter, and you can just fence. So we very much wanted the fencing club to be a community-oriented place, and we never actually sought out. It was funny because when we started the fencing club together, everyone's like, "Oh, how many champions do you have? How many people are you going to make go to the Olympic team?" And da 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 da. You're going to make all these champions, and it's interesting because it was never our thought process to make Olympians. We wanted very much to, anyone who walked in the door was interested in fencing. We wanted to make sure that you had a good experience and that we called it challenge or impossible, that we wanted to make sure that you could come in and be the best that you can be and at your highest potential. And we had a ton of kids who, they weren't awesome fencers, but they came in and they actually suddenly thought, oh, I'm a really good athlete now. Or they thought of themselves as an athlete because they could finally get a skill. Fencing is a very skill-based sport, so everyone starts at zero. So it was a very big mission for us, and also we cared about education, we cared about the kids, we cared about the community. So one of the things we're most proud of is a lot of our children our kids that graduate from our program, they eventually go on to be captains of their team. We've had a captain of Air Force Academy, we've had a captain of Temple University. So for us, we wanted to build people who could be leaders, people who are who just could find spaces that they could continue to thrive even beyond us. And I think that was a very different concept when we owned a fencing club, because so many sports, they want the kids to perform because there's more money in that, there's more fame in that. But we really just were interested in making sure that kids had a place they could belong and a place they could be at their best. So I think with that, our fencing club grew because, how many parents look for a place for their children that they could feel that they can belong and pursue themselves at their best.
That's incredible. I'm still absorbing all of this, and
I am too, Kelly.
Right? It's a lot to absorb. I'm not surprised. But I just love that idea of being whoever, behind that mask, you can be whoever you want to be. And you and your sister did that and became Olympians. And that's just incredible on its own. But then to go back and want to just instill leadership in these kids and not you have to follow my feet and do what I did and become this amazing athlete and this Olympian wasn't the focus. And I think that's probably unique and it's so incredible. So well done. That's amazing. I was a big nerd too, but I had no athletic abilities at all. But it would have been nice at that age to find a place where I felt like I could be whoever I wanted to be and have that support and that camaraderie. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Thanks. You. Thank you for doing that.
It's been fun. And my sister, as with most business owners, I have to tip my hat to all the business owners during the pandemic that, still continue to run a business, right? So she was able to do that. Kelly, I watched you kind of your journey there too, and watched my sister, and it's unreal what you guys have done to maintain a business, to keep it going. And so many of the parents, at least for the fencing club, and I just shout out to my sister, Felicia, because, these kids need a place. They were kind of lost for a little while, and then she did as much as she could to make sure that the fencing club could open again so people had a place. The kids had a place to go and they could be active and they could see each other again. So I have a huge respect for her because she did it on her own when I left. And so I just wanted to say that. And also to resonate with you, Kelly, all the things that you had to go through too, and still going through. We're not past all of that. We're still affected by it in businesses. So, so I just wanted to give her the shout out, but I did leave at some point. She continues that legacy.
So at some point in time, as a little sister, and your sister has the business in a pandemic, were you like, oh, thank God?
We can edit that part out for the one that you send to her.
Yeah, she knows. I mean, she doesn't, not that having kids versus not having kids, but she doesn't have kids, and for her, that was her kid. And I had 2 kids in a pandemic. And I was starting in a new role at a startup in Boston around coaching and leadership coaching. Thankfully, they started Zoom coaching before Zoom coaching was a thing, with other companies who started that too, but they started in 2017. But, a little bit of it, I was like, I couldn't handle the stress between having to teach my kids, having to work, And also my father was very ill at the time, which my sister also worked hard at as well. I don't know if I could have handled yet another thing on my plate. And just to say, my sister, another shout out to her, she runs the fencing club from Cairo, Egypt. She lives in Cairo. She doesn't live in Rochester. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's wild. You know what? Women can do some shit. I'm just saying.
Second t-shirt of the day.
Yeah. Women can do some shit, and they can do it from
we
anywhere, at any time, in any place. So, and she, it's amazing what she can do. So I just shout her out, but you're absolutely right. Was I thankful? Hell yes. You know, I don't know. I mean, the sustaining of that stress, and I have high levels of anxiety, so I think it probably would have killed me. So
Very
We're
honest.
glad that
But
you
were
got out
starting-
before then.
And then you were starting a new job or position during that, though? I mean, that's just as big as running a business through a pandemic.
Well, it was interesting. In 2017, I wanted something else. So I started, the fencing club was a good sort of starting place. And I went to Simon School, got a business degree, ran the fencing club with my sister. And at some point I was like, you know, I like fencing, but it's not really a part of my identity. I want something different. And I sat with a friend and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I'm totally lost. You know, I don't know what to do with any of this. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I thought I was going to run for office. I thought I was going to be a congresswoman. That was my thing. Like, I wanted to be a congresswoman. I wanted to change the laws. Like, I wanted all these things. But then I was like, you can't, that's not my path. That's not what I want to do. What do I do? And he sat me down. He's like, you like to teach. Even as a kid, I was always teaching people fencing. They would always pull me out to teach kids fencing. I love teaching. I love it in the moment when people like get something. They're like, oh, and I'm like, yes, oh, amazing. And so for me, it was so great. I love teaching. So a friend of mine who's also an Olympian, I was headed towards an Olympic alumni conference in Colorado, and she's this decorated rowing Olympian. She said, you know, I have a friend in Boston. She's doing a startup, and she's an entrepreneur, and she's hiring Olympians to become executive coaches and teaching them how to coach. And so I was like, oh, I love coaching. I love teaching. So I'm going to go and do that. So I went in there, and it was a startup outside of Boston, and they did Zoom coaching, and I learned how to coach. And I got a coaching certification, and I've been coaching since 2017. And then I worked within the organization. So after I left the fencing club, I started working in an organization. I ended up being an interesting story, just a shortened story, is when I first joined, I could do a bunch of things. And this is something really important, I think, maybe for the group. But I started off being really deferential about who I was and what I could do. So I was like, oh, do you have an internship or something I could do for your business? Because, you know, I just ran a fencing club, and, you know, you have a startup. So I don't know what I could do.
That just word always gets in the way.
Yeah, like I very much put myself in this position of, I don't know what I'm doing because I ran a fencing club, you know, because people would often say, oh, you own a fencing club, so you don't really own a business, right? So it doesn't make all this money, so you don't really own a business. So I felt that way. I was like, oh, I don't really own a business. I kind of like do some businessy stuff. And yeah, I might have an MBA, but you know, I'm an imposter syndrome like test case. So I went in, and she gave me an internship in marketing. And then I did that, crushed it. And then, as they say, these young people. And then I went in and did another role in operations. And then eventually the CEO called me the Swiss Army knife. She was like, wow, you can do everything. I was like, oh yeah, I could do everything. And I'm like, now looking back, I'm like, you're an idiot. You could be the CEO of the company, and you just called yourself, you know, whatever. So, and then I kept working in the company, and there was a point where, you know, she goes, what else do you want to do? And I said, you know, I'd really like to run the coaches. But at the time, the guy who was head of the coaches had a PhD. And I said, you know, but I think I could really run it, and it could really be like this and this. And she got back from maternity leave, and she hired a PhD. And I was like, huh. So at the sort of end of the story is about a year or so later, I actually take that job and that role, because what the business actually needed was someone who could actually do operations, and that role needed to be split, as I had mentioned. So I became the VP of coaching at the end of my career there. And then I realized, I'm spending a lot of time working, and I'm not paying attention to what I need to do at home with my children. And this period of their life, I don't want to miss it. They're 8 and 10. So I basically shifted my entire life in August to make sure that I reprioritized so that my kids and my family became a priority. I'm in that squeeze where I have parents who need help, and then my children who also need help. And so I'm in that sort of middle ground. And I realized, like, at this point in my life, do I want to constantly be exhausted at the end of the week? Mm-hmm. Not really. Do I want to listen to what I coach other people on? Yes, I do. So in August, I started, and now I own my own company, coaching. So I do coaching. I've consulted people on things. I have a podcast. I do different pieces of this, of coaching. So that's where I am now. It's a lot in one, but I think one of the things I would say from that story is, I think if you own a small business, sometimes you go to these other businesses or startups or bigger businesses and you think, oh, well, I just ran this, company, or I just had a studio, or I just did this or did that. And that's not actually true. All businesses have the same business problems. They just get bigger, right? Or smaller. And it's interesting because it gave me a lot of confidence. So I coach startup CEOs. I'm coaching other people in larger companies, smaller companies, doctors, and everyone had the same problemas. So I think it was just an interesting lesson to learn. So if I would take away anything from that story, it would be that.
So we're talking, how many years of a spread did you just go over in like 20 minutes? Like,
when she was 6,
trained to be an Olympian, owning your own
I told you.
business and podcast.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. But that's everyone. I mean, I don't know. Is that everyone's journey? Kind of like trying to make the best they can where they are?
Yeah.
So I want to touch back a couple things, but first, so this was August of last year that you created your this current business, because it's not your first. And what is the name of your business?
So it's called Monarch Leadership Group.
Okay. And what is the name of your podcast?
Untrained.
So I want to, oh, sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, just
no,
is a killer,
love
man.
Those 2 words, but we can circle back to that. Let's start with just.
Yeah. I think I've struggled with that when I did a cohort with Simon Business School, and I was like, yeah, I just own a bar and grill. I don't know where, and the one of the women that we had in there, she's like, you have to get just out of your vocabulary. Like, all businesses, like Kelly and I have been talking about a lot lately, all businesses start out as small businesses. And one thing we've realized while the 8.5 years of doing BOSSY is all businesses have the same struggles. It doesn't matter if you're bringing in $600 a year or $6 million a year. The problems still exist, and they're often pretty similar. And a lot of times the way out of those problems is pretty similar. So I think getting just out of our vocabulary is really important. So I'm glad that you touched on that.
I think it's really hard because we live with ourselves. I'm my own coach is someone who's very familiar with imposter syndrome, and she's kind of the imposter syndrome guru. You look at yourself in the mirror every day and you see all the blemishes. You see all the things that are going wrong. I mean, you see so many. I'm a pretty negative person, which is ironic being a coach, because I'm very positive with my clients, but you see yourself every day. So it is hard to really see the measure of things because you just have this sort of recency. I woke up, I look terrible, like this looks terrible, these things are going wrong. But I think, I think if you can take a step back and think about, all the measure of things that you've done and the summation of all those things and really grab on some perspective, then you realize how powerful you are and how amazing you are. And that's literally what I do as a coach. Because people come in, they're like, oh, this isn't going well, and this person's driving me crazy. So many people problems, right, in small businesses. And then we kind of step back, and I'm like, look how far you've gone. Because I keep notes. And I'm like, look, a year ago, this wouldn't even be a conversation we'd be having. Now you have 10 employees versus just you. And so, let's look back on that. So you're absolutely right. I think it is. Yes, part of it is how do we speak to ourselves, but I think also just like you need some perspective on how far we've come because we only look at where we are right now today, and look in the mirror and be like, look at all the wrinkles, instead of just looking at all the experiences, all the things.
Right.
So I know I looked at all my wrinkles this morning. So
Well, and personally, I realized recently that part of my problem wasn't necessarily imposter syndrome or just because I did both of those things, but they both stemmed from how I was rating my success. Because it depends on what you're looking for in that success. And for me personally, it was like certain people that I wanted to notice what I was doing and what I've accomplished and what I've succeeded at and how amazing I'm doing and how great I am. And if those people aren't acknowledging you, you still hold on to those like, well, I must not be doing good enough. I must not be successful enough because they haven't noticed, or, you know, and it's really getting deep down into why you feel that way, right? Because we all do it, but we all do it for different reasons. And that imposter syndrome and that just is really us circling up whatever it is inside of us that's keeping us from moving forward. Mm-hmm. And it's like so important to figure that out so that we can own it, because we are amazing, doing incredible things.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm resonating with that because last year and this year is a journey of self-validation. I am very externally motivated, and external validation is very important to me, or has been in the past. I mean, think about like everything as an athlete is an externally motivated thing, and rewards, right? Like I am working for that reward. So I totally resonate with the external validation piece, and I absolutely agree. You know, in coaching, we do a lot of like trying to get defining your success for yourself. Also, I love what you did with like, why do I need this other person's validation, or what's so important about their voice? And what is important about what they need to tell me I'm doing well at? We just did a podcast on comparison. I think once we flipped comparison around and said like, let's say I look at you, Kelly, and I'm like, oh man, she's got this and she's got that, and I don't have that. It's rather than just staying in the place of like, oh, they have something that I want. It's getting really curious. And I like what you did was like getting really curious about what is it about that I feel like I'm missing, and how do I then fill that gap for myself or find support to fill that gap. And I think we often get stuck in that space of negativity where we don't look at like, okay, well, how can I resource myself to get the things I need? And what is it that I need? Because we so often as high performers ignore the things that we need, right? Like, why do I need that person's validation? And why am I feeling like this isn't good enough? And getting really curious about that. I like that.
Yeah, we often focus more on like, I know for me, who I want recognition from, I don't actually need that for my professional life. That's a personal thing. So we often put so much effort into, you know, like changing that, you know, who do you want that recognition from, but focusing more on who do you need it from. Because there's certain people I do need that recognition from. The ones I want it from, at the end of the day, doesn't really matter. It's only affecting me personally.
Yeah, and I wonder sometimes Yeah, and why do we set the bar so high? Sometimes we're like, we're only going to be so good if this person recognizes me. Mm-hmm. But why? Why that bar? Why that person? And why don't we, and I noticed for myself too, like there are people in my sphere and my close friends who are like, who would be honest with me and say, you're doing well or you're not doing well. And they come to me and say, you're doing a great job. This is amazing and that's amazing. And why am I discounting them? Mm-hmm. Right? So why do I have people in my sphere that I'm discounting? And learning how to not discount their validation, and learning like, what does Brene Brown has like she's like a 1 inch by 1 inch square. You put people's names on it that you want validation from. And when those people give you, yeah, I love that one too. And, you know, when those people give you that validation to also internalize, the other thing too is I don't internalize it. Like someone say, you're doing really well. And I'm like, yeah, but mm-hmm. I'm a huge yeah, butter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that could be better. But it's more about like, how can we just recognize in this moment we're doing the best that we can with what we have, and it's pretty damn good. Right. And just to recognize that.
I'm envisioning now this like recognition bingo where I have like, instead of numbers, I have people's names, and as soon as I get it, I can stamp it, and when I win bingo, I can buy myself a new
go on a cruise.
Something. Go on a cruise. I could do something.
Yeah, exactly.
For myself. So
that's
I'm going to create
good.
that. I'm going to write that down. Recognition bingo. I'm going to patent
yes.
it and trademark.
Yes, and the thing is, the rewards is important because I realized, like, because I'm not out in Rochester to do all these things, and I'm not getting the rewards because I'm not doing the things. I think it's important when you're self-validating to reward yourself, to try to figure out what are the rewards that are important. It's maybe reserving a day where I don't have to do all the work, or a Saturday is a day where I can just read my book for a couple hours or whatever. Like, I need rewards. Like, I actually need those things. So recognizing that I need those things rather than waiting for other people to give them to me, do the bingo. And then once I hit those marks and people give me validation, or I self-validate, that I actually reward myself for those things. Sometimes we buy a pair of shoes, maybe that's a reward.
Often it is.
Yes.
I like self-validation bingo even better.
Yep. That's the advanced. That's the what do they call that when you buy the game and then there's the expansion pack.
The add-on.
The expansion pack.
Yeah, I love this. This could be a Bossy Rock patented thing.
Yeah,
I like
right?
this.
I'm
This
working on it.
bingo.
We'll split the profits with you.
Exactly. I mean, you're here for it, so it's only fair.
Yeah, well, I would put it right back into local businesses. How about that?
Mm-hmm. All right, got it.
We'll put your names on it so you feel validated.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
The middle box.
I love this. I love this. This is great.
Kelly, did
Do you
you
see
wanna
how
go
like you
back?
get entrepreneurs together? Now we've
Yeah.
like made a game we're going to patent now. I
Exactly.
love this. I just love this. Women do all this shit all the time.
We do. I have that written down.
Yep.
Kelly, did you want to go back to the name of the business and the podcast? I think that resonated with you, and
So,
I cut you off.
I don't know, from what we've heard about you, so you said the business is Monarch leadership. So like I see this monarch butterfly and like the chrysalis that blooms into the butterfly, and totally know where you're going there, right? So it's like this gorgeous growth and beautiful thing that flies away and is successful and gets to go to Mexico. And then
Reward.
Untrained. And then Untrained is so like opposite. Like I almost, when you said it, like my envisioning of the monarch that was happening, like almost went back. Like, I don't know, it was like this really weird thing that happened in my head when you listed off both names. And I feel like you must have done that on purpose. So I assume the podcast is very different from the business.
You know what's interesting is I love that you have so much faith in my forethought for all the things. I super appreciate that. Everything is totally planned. It's so planned. I always say, like, I play an organized person on television. Mm-hmm. But if you actually looked around, things are kind of messy. You know what's interesting about the monarch? Yes to the butterfly, and I think that the most important part is the growth when the butterfly looks like shit. And so when the butterfly looks at its most terrible, it's really when it's getting all of its power pulled together. And I think that is literally what I was trying to get across, was how amazing it is to be in transition, to not be afraid of the messiness, because that is what the purpose is. That is what life is. And so a lot of times when people come to coaching, they're coming because things are messy, and they're like, oh, there's got to be a fix, and there's got to be this thing needs to be fixed, and that thing needs to be fixed. And a lot of times it's letting go of a lot of things and being in that space of discomfort that allows us to grow, which I know a lot of us talk about. But, we can talk about it, but actually going through the discomfort is very, very difficult. That changing, that metamorphosis is very difficult. So for me, the metamorphosis piece was, I think, very resonant. But yes, like having the butterfly is great, and we all want that. But so many of us, especially, our group, we are constantly evolving. And when you constantly evolve, you're always going to invoke that messiness. And so we never are in a place where, like, if this happens, then that will happen. I want us to get to a place, well, it is happening. It's happening right now. It doesn't look how you want it to look. It's not always going to look how you want it to look. And we have to let go of some of that in order to actually kind of move forward. So Monarch Leadership Group was that for me, because it is like, when I started it, I was like, I don't know what this is going to be. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm still trying to figure that out. And so I think Monarch was very important for me. That word. So I do appreciate you calling that out. But the untrained part is very interesting. My partner, my Kelly, of the Kellys, is called Whitney Otto, and she lives in Cambridge. And she and I met at Valor Performance at the startup, and we just love each other. And we both were Olympians. Well, she was an alternate to the 2000 team, and in rowing, and she lived very much like I did, where our most visible part of our lives, where people were like, wow, you're so great and everything's so great. She went to Brown, she almost made an Olympic team, she became a world champion, but she also was battling an eating disorder. I was battling depression and anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I think we found each other that way, of all the things that we learned growing up, of what does success look like? What should we be as women? Like, how should we look as women? What should we do? How should we succeed? How do we push ourselves? How do we not push ourselves? What should we be like? We had to untrain from our minds and our bodies in order to get to a more healthy place. So we call Untrained the podcast of like untraining these toxic behaviors and mindsets. And we do it for our clients. I mean, so many of the women that we work with are just burned out. They're like trying to do everything at home and everything at work, and they're just absolutely burned out. And having more grace and permission and how to untrain some of the things that you have to, you should, just all those things, so that they can become more, you can become more free to sort of live the life that you really want to live. So that's the purpose of Untrained. And we take all of our coaching, we'll have coaching clients during the week, and we're like, oh, this is so good. We coach someone on this, and then we just kind of type it up, and we're like, let's share it with everyone because maybe it'll help someone else, So it really is just a project for fun, the podcast of Untrained.
You really did find yourself a Kelly.
You really did.
You found somebody, like, think about, like, you both, not just say peaked, but like athletically speaking, like you were in the Olympics. Like, is there more than a peak than that? Like, you peaked at like before you were 20. Like that's a mind fuck. Sorry. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
Like, holy shit, you peaked before you were like through puberty. Like, they say your brain goes through puberty till you're like 25. Like,
yeah.
But you found this person that not only had that same experience, but is also doing a similar job now. Like, you found your Kelly.
You did.
I know. Everyone needs to find their Kelly.
I agree. I love that. And I want to just go back when you were talking about your business and saying like how amazing it is to be in transition. I think so many times we're told, like, in hard moments, in tough times, like just look at the end, like the light at the end of the tunnel, like always look forward and don't get too bogged down with what you're going through now. But that's really such an amazing thing that you get to be in transition, because that means something is changing, which means something wasn't working, so you're moving towards something different. But I think so often we don't sit in those moments, and it's so important. And there was a time in my life where my therapist said to me, stop thinking, what life is gonna be like in a year, and just acknowledge where you're at right now and how great that you are here and you weren't there yesterday. And really, I love that your focus is to just embrace the amazingness that transition can be, and not having to rush through that, and appreciating that for what it is, and that you get to have it.
Yeah, and I don't want to sit here and be like, I totally embrace it with all the zen and awesomeness of all the things. Like, I embrace it like, what in the fuck is happening here? And I have to say, I have tools now, whereas to your point, Kelly, the mindfuck was, if you're an Olympian, that's how you got to run your life. Everything has to be at that level. And like living at that level, it's intense. I was like, this isn't working for me.
No, and it's not possible.
It's not possible, but no one tells you that. I have a group of Olympian women we meet with, and we just ran our lives like that. We're like, all right, we got to be the best of everything. And we enter and do. And it's really it's not the way to go. But, I don't want to sit here and say, I know all the things, but I would have to say a month ago, I was talking to another coaching friend. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have clients coming in. Things aren't happening. this is such a mess. What do I think I'm doing? I just need to get a job and a 401k, and then I'll be all right. And then what am I doing? And he's like, you know what, Iris, every day is a little bit different. And also the only way to get from here to wherever you're trying to go is the way through. you got to do it. You just got to go one foot in front of the other, and that's it. And then you have to have some faith around it. And I've never done it that way. I've planned my life to a T. Like every 4 years, you have an Olympic Games, 4 years, 4 or 5 years, 6 years in my case, finishing college, and then going to, 3 years of business school. You've got all these plans, and you're like, I'm going to race towards them, and here's where I'm going to be in 5 years. And I think this is the first time in my life I was like, I don't know where this is going to go. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. Tomorrow I'm going to work a little bit more on my social media. I'm going to see if I can drum up some more clients, and I'm going to talk to the Kellys on Monday. We're going to see how that goes and have some fun with it. So I think it allows for more joy, and just to know, like, it is hard sometimes, and that's okay. And you're going to pick yourself up, and you're going to get better for it. Because I never really allowed that either, Kelly. Like, I never really allowed, like, oh, if this is a bad day, everything's going to fall apart. I definitely was like, tomorrow's going to explode. Nothing's going to work for me. This business is the worst. I'm the worst. It would all go to those scenarios. So it's much better, I think, to embrace that it's just going to be chaos. There's no like, when this happens, then this will happen.
Right. And those are the most beautiful stories too. I think we found that in doing these podcasts, and just in BOSSY in general, hearing people's stories. Like, it's great to hear where they are, and it's amazing you're an Olympian and you've got this great business, but hearing your story and all of that other messy stuff is what's truly beautiful. So
yeah, the fun is in the messy stuff.
Mm-hmm. So who is your ideal client? Who are you working with now? Who are you looking to work with in your coaching business?
You have to name names, but
no.
All the people.
Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Reynolds for sure. But like, you don't have to name names.
Can you get him on our podcast? We can
exactly.
We'll
exactly.
I would love to work on that.
Yes, exactly. I know. I was like, Jazzy probably has all the connections. She probably has all those connections. I have all the Olympic stuff connections. So if you want to talk to other Olympians, but. What's interesting about the ideal client, I guess I could sort of do it roundabout, but it's funny because I first said, I want to coach women who are like me. They're in their 40s, they have kids, they're trying to juggle that squeeze of having older parents and younger kids. That's the demographic, because I know that demographic. I put it out there. I got 3 30-year-old guys from California, and I was like, how does that marketing work? And so... because the younger generation really believes in coaching, really believes in this work. They've done therapy. They believe in this work. Performance coaching is important for their career and lives. I help people. So I call myself a performance coach. So I was telling Kelly M that I don't really call myself a life coach. I've definitely helped people with career transitions. Mostly I'm helping people within their careers or business owners that are faced with like day-to-day issues, or they're trying to use me as a sounding board for things, or, I want to change a habit, or, add something, helping them with their teams, etc. So it's really hard for me to say like I coach one person, but I think the one type of person, but the one thing that's a string throughout is I'm not really trying to organize your life of like, I think people come and think, oh, she's an Olympian, so she'll help me with my exercise and my schedule of exercise and diet and everything. I'm just not that person. I help people with like, what helps you perform? Is it more sleep? Then we have to get that. Is it letting go of dealing with your emotions, letting go of some of that emotional hangover, dealing with a difficult team member? What is it that helps you mentally and physically prepare to perform at your job, which can also be at home, right? So you're not a different person at home as you are at work. This is the hard part for this, is you're not two different people. So when I coach you, it's not like I'm coaching you as just the person who owns a business, but I'm coaching you as a person who owns a business, but also has a life at home. And how do you integrate those two things, and how we do that? So everything is more towards like, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? What do you need clarity on? What's on your mind? What holds you back? All of those things. And I think I've got people from mid-20s. I don't usually do teenagers. To your point, Kelly M., I think I take people when they've matured and gone through a couple things, it's easier because then they have experiences. So probably mid-20s. And also, there's a real surgence of women in their 50s and 60s who are like, I'm ready to ramp up my career. But there's a lot of ageism. So there's a bunch of women that I've worked with too that are in their 50s and 60s who want to move their career forward, but there's no pathway. And that's, I think, another thread too is I haven't had a traditional pathway, and I think I give permission slips to people to have different pathways where, they felt like I should be like this person, or I should do this thing, or I should do that thing. And I kind of help them get through to a point where they figure out, what do you really want to do, and what is the path you see yourself in. What is it? One recently, a woman who went on maternity leave, and she goes, you know what? I don't know if I want to return to a full-time job. And I said, okay, because there's no handbook for women, or, now let's just not leave men out, but who go out on leave and who want to have, more time with their children. There's no handbook or guidance. There's only like in corporate America or in general, you're just kind of like, you get a pathway, you get a promotion, then you get another promotion, you get another promotion, but there's no like, how do I integrate my life? Like, I want to really be a mom for the next 5 years. How do I do that and not let my career fall down? Right. So, I work with a lot of people, especially women, on trying to build their own pathways and build their own paths. Because if you don't sit on a path, like I'm a lawyer, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to work for a law firm, or I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to do this, this, and this. There's certain pathways that are grooved, but if you're someone that doesn't fit in one of those fishing lanes, those pathways, then you come to a coach. And so I have a lot of those people too, of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I know I like this. How do I integrate all these things? And so then we just build their life together. So this is all to say, like, I don't do the life coaching of like, I'm not the nutrition and all of that. I do integrate the body into it, but it's not like that. It's more, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? How do we get you there?
I really like when you said that you integrate the person at work and the person at home, because we really are the same people and like the things that we're passionate about. So like, it made me think of my daughter when she came into work one day and she was like, you act the same way here as you do at home, only you're talking to adults. And I was like, yeah, because like I'm everybody's mom. Like, oh, you can't do that, or oh, you need to tuck your shirt in, or oh.
Yes. Yes.
Because at my job, that I'm mom at work and I'm mom at home, and not in like this negative way. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, you can't be a parent at work. And I'm like, no, but I'm the boss. Like, I'm the person that has to run everything.
I always call them moms or parent, whoever's running the household is the CEO of their household. I think people need to think of it that way, because you are leading your household. You're managing where everyone goes. You're managing that they're doing it well. You're holding them accountable to the things that they need to be doing. So you're
figuring
absolutely
out how to pay for it.
Yeah. You're budgeting. Yeah. So you're the CEO of a household. So it will be the same in both places. Yeah.
You are a champion in so many ways. I mean, the obvious way, but also, what you did in your fencing business to encourage people and not do things the same way, and give people, like, not focusing on that traditional, you're going to be an Olympian, you're going to do things this way, you're just going to find a place to fit in and do something really well and become a leader. And now in your business, this permission slip to people who are doing their pathway to business is non-traditional. And I think we're finding a lot more people that are doing that now, but you're supporting them, and it's unique and it's incredible.
I just got a bingo card from a Kelly.
You did.
Like a bingo point.
You got a bingo point.
Oh, I'm going to just totally put that there. I'll write that shit down. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do you think that being a first generation of immigrant parents, so your dad's from Germany?
Yep, he grew up in Berlin post World War II. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that has affected your pathway? I mean, I know it definitely affected like you going into fencing per se, but like post fencing pathway.
Well, there's two things. One is tangible, and the other one's esoteric. So the what's tangible is I'm absolutely every bit of a first generation where you feel like you have to live up to something, right? So your parents came here and sacrificed. They left their place of origin, to be somewhere else so that their children could have something. So you feel absolutely this pressure to perform and to be something, quote unquote, in order to live up to whatever it is that they dreamed of, right? So it absolutely, and it also affects what I coach too, because I coach a lot of this belonging piece. How do you belong? How do you feel safe in places? Because I didn't often feel like I belong. So it drove the success piece for me, but it also drives like my reasoning for coaching too, is I want people to have safe spaces. Same with the fencing club. Like people have to have safe spaces, because when you're an immigrant, it's not really, this is a total foreign country, so nothing feels safe. I mean, parents like no idea what any of this is. So I come home and be like, oh, we got to dress up for Halloween. My mom's like, what's a Halloween? And then you don't fit in because you don't do the things, right? Your house always smells like garlic and onions and Chinese food, whereas like normal American people don't do that kind of stuff, right? And my lunches look totally different than the lunches of the kids, so there's every little bit you feel like you're not a part of something, or you don't feel like you fit in. So, and everyone has that, even if you were, everyone has some piece of, I didn't belong somewhere. And I definitely felt that. So it definitely colors how I see the world. The more esoteric thing that I was talking about was, this is just new for me, is the generational piece of it. So I think my biggest value is freedom. I don't think I could ever go, much to my husband's chagrin. I won't probably go back to a corporate setting because I like my freedom and autonomy of time. And I spoke to my mom last week, and she said the whole reason I wanted to come to the States is because that story I told you is because it was in China, you're just told what to be and what to do and how to act. She wore short skirts. She would always tell me the story of like wearing short skirts, and the Chinese would tell her that she couldn't wear short skirts. Then she did her hair like Elvis. Oh my God, you listen to Elvis, and she would pop her collars, or she would even like cut a deep V in the back of her shirt, because Chinese women don't do that. And she's like, and she always, if she were to live today, she'd be one of us, an entrepreneur for sure, but she didn't have that. She could be a teacher or a nurse, and she became a nurse. But I think there's this generational thing. This is esoteric. My grandmother was the first to not have her feet bound in China. My mother also fought hard to be her own very, very, very strong-willed person in China, where women were not allowed to be strong-willed or speak their mind. So I absolutely have that in my genetics. It's deep in that hereditary genetics. I think you do have all of that trauma built up into your system. You have all of the things that the women before you or the people before you had to deal with, and you have that in your system. So, because last week was one of the first times I was realized, oh my God, I love freedom so much, because it was something that all the women that came before me needed, wanted, and fought for. But it takes time. I mean, my daughters it'll be different. They will live it in a different way. So that's how it influences in both a very tangible piece and a more esoteric piece.
I love how that just connected to, you think freedom and you don't think work. Mm-hmm. Especially growing up here, freedom is always spoken of in a very American way. Freedom of speech, freedom of property, you don't really think about it in freedom of time and freedom of what I want to spend my time doing. And that was really beautiful. And I will look at it differently now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you come from a long line of freedom seekers.
Yes, I like that.
Carrying that on, your children will be carrying that on. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, time is the one thing we can never get back. That is actually, as you said that, Kelly, I realize that now. I think in my coaching, I'm just getting an aha moment of I think I free people's time for themselves. Mm-hmm. And it is the number one thing. People are I want my time to do what I want with it. That autonomy of time is something very central to so many people, and especially people that I coach.
That's amazing. And look here we are at almost an hour. We always say like, oh my gosh, are we going to have enough to talk about? And I feel like I could talk to you for hours more.
Thanks for letting me come and hang.
Love it. And I don't think
Thank
we'll
you
have
for
you back.
coming.
And maybe sometime we'll loop your sister in too, and we can have all four of us on, because I feel like I want to get to know her a little bit better too.
Yeah, she's amazing. And you can ask her all about Cairo, Egypt.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I'm working on my list of Olympians that I want to meet, so I'll send that over to you later, but not right now. So tell us, how can we find you? If somebody's listening and they are really looking for a motivational performance coach who's going to help them down their non-traditional path of whatever it is they're doing, how do they find you?
On LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn for sure, Iris Zimmerman, and then also on Instagram, Coach Iris TZ. So I just started this year pushing Instagram a little bit more and doing a little bit more to tell this story on Instagram.
That's
So they can follow me in those places. And then also monarchleadershipgroup.com is our my website as well.
Isn't it funny how we refer to our businesses as like a
Our-
plural?
Yeah. Isn't it weird? I don't know. I like building stuff with people much better than just being on my own. It's kind of boring on my own.
Well, this is just the start. You may have more coaches that you'll need to hire at some point.
Oh, and your podcast. How do we find your podcast?
Oh, it's called Untrained, and it's on Apple Podcasts. I think it's on Spotify, and where you get your podcasts, I believe. And then also we actually intended it to be on YouTube as a YouTube channel. So Untrained is a YouTube channel because we do a lot of things, like we wore for Imposter Syndrome, we wore disguises. We get into things. We get into it. We were wearing these, like, the nose mustache disguises, like the Groucho Marx disguises. So we were, do you ever feel like you're in disguise? So anyways, we do a lot also visually. And also for me, this sort of biracial thing, I wanted to also have people see me,
Right.
because, I think it's important to have people represented so that they can see, like, oh, here's an executive coach. She's biracial and she has this background and this is what she looks like. I think it's important. It was important for me to see, like, oh my God, when Kamala Harris, as a biracial woman, became vice president, I cried for days. I'm still crying. So, seeing someone who is like you or kind of like you or has this history like you is so important. So that's why we decided to do it as a YouTube channel too. So that's how people can find me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I feel the opposite of what you were saying before. I feel the opposite of an emotional hangover. I feel like I can go attack my day now. So
Right.
thank you for
Yes.
for coming on.
Yes. Thank you so much.
It's so great to hear your story, and it was great to meet you last week, and I can't wait to see you again and hear what's next for you, because I have a feeling you're going to continue to be a champion to so many people, and I'm looking forward to following your story.
Thank you. Thanks for everything. And then tell me when this is on so I can also post it and promote it. So
Awesome. It'll probably be, I think, May or June.
Yeah.
This episode. Awesome.
I
Great.
think so, yeah.
great. I'll put it on I'm learning the social media stuff.
Yeah, it's fun.
It sometimes I'm like, I don't understand. I'm too old.
Necessary evils, yeah.
Yes.
It is a weird relation. You could do a whole podcast on it. It's like I have a weird feelings about it. I have all the feelings.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just want off of it, but I can't. I want it all gone. I just want the satellite to have something happen so that we can't use it, so I don't feel pressured into figuring it out.
I know, but I do have to say, I know we're recording, but this is just not on the record or off the record,
Yeah.
but I have to say, people, if people are finding belonging or connection, they can find it there. But if you don't look for it as your only sense of connection or belonging, but as a coach, it's really fascinating what people like and what they resonate with. And and they like to connect with the people that are posting things. So I think it's like almost a couple things. Like it's the democratization of knowledge. And it's also, you can reach like a Ryan Reynolds. You could reach him today on Instagram. Right. Yes, you would go through someone, but think people are reachable. Or if you wanted to reach out to me and you wanted some coaching stuff, I could give it to you today and you could reach to me. It's like there's some really positive things. So I try to think of that. But yeah, like it's just very hard. It's just very hard to feel that pressure as a business owner. So that's why I hired someone to do it for me.
You're smart.
We'll see how he does, but anywho, I took up a lot of time. I can talk forever, so
we can. do.
Thank you, Iris. Your time is valuable.
Yes,
it is. It is. I and yours is too. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye. Did you stop recording?
I can. I'll stop for a second and we'll come back to it. Well, all right. I'm glad I went into that blind. It was pretty amazing. Feel? Oh my God. She's incredible. I have to say it every time. Like, this person is incredible, but they are all incredible. But holy shit, what a story. And what a thing. She's amazing what she's doing.
I love how she introduced herself.
Yeah.
How she introduced herself, how she sees herself, and then introduced herself how the world sees her.
Yeah, we need to do that more often. I think learning that distinction is really important and honoring it. And maybe we should add that to the sheet that we send out to guests beforehand. Like how do you define yourself? Like,
so you get like pronouns and then like your description and then the world's description.
And then the world's description. Although everybody, she's an Olympian. I just can't get over it. I feel like it's this back to like Megan Flanagan Mills when she was on the CIA. All right, this is all just wow. And we know these people, and they're in our circle. And you and I need to remember that these incredible people are in our circle too, and that's pretty amazing.
I loved the description about the monarch butterfly at its ugliest. Mm-hmm. And now I want instead of getting the butterfly tattoo that everybody got in the 90s, I want to get the tattoo of like the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis, like
a deconstructed butterfly.
You get like the little elbow of the wing coming out,
right?
A little foot sticking out the top.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you have to embrace those moments, and we're always told like just look forward and keep going, but you have to appreciate where you are and the fact that you get to be where you are. You get to have change. You get to create change in your life. That's a privilege.
Parts. That's how we grow. I tell it's where she actually said like she needs to follow her own coaching. Like I just told one of my daughters the other day, like if you want to build a relationship with a friend, like you have to get through the hard parts. Like you have to argue and figure out your differences and your similarities and how you're gonna meld, and like that ugly stuff is what makes your relationship better. Right. And then here we are trying to be perfect for the world. Mm-hmm.
Yep. We need to
follow our own advice.
Yeah. And embrace that mess.
And untrain yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking forward to listening to that. So yeah, everybody continue listening to Getting Real with Bossy and Untrained, and then dare to interrupt because I'm obsessed. There's another plug, another shout out there.
So you can follow Iris on Instagram.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Instagram, Iris TZ on Instagram, and monarchleadershipgroup.com, and her podcast is Untrained.
And you can find her on LinkedIn. Iris Zimmerman. I'm really excited. I got to check out her Instagram to figure out how she's telling her story, because that's also a great idea from somebody who's new that's going into it to tell their story of their business for the first time, to see how it's happening. It's really interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah, we're glad to continue to share these amazing stories. And sorry, my computer just did something funny. Remind me tomorrow. Sorry, scratch that. Yes, thank you so much. Look forward to sharing another story with you next time.
Remember, be bold, be brave, be the boss. Getting Real with Bossy. Follow us.
Yes.
Instagram at Getting Real with Bossy and Bossy Rock ROC. See you next time.
See you next time.